Well, um, yeah, so if we use Wilder, right? One, two, three, four, five. Uh, at the bottom part of the brain, your brain is processing fear and joy, right? And if a joy experience, joy produces wonderful sense of connection, and there's kind of, you feel alive and you feel bonded. But joy doesn't seem to fully bond. It's shared fear that is the bonding. So Psalm 23, as you guys know, I quote, though I walk through the valley of shadow of death, I fear no evil, for you are with me. And notice Jesus constantly demonstrates he's with us. And his promise, lo, I'm with you to the ends of the earth. I will never leave you. I will not forsake you.
Mm-hmm.
Notice he's not promising to make us happy or give us joyfulness. He's promising to be with us in a safe haven way where we experience his compassion, but his strength. And that strength part then helps, the compassion helps hold our fear. Because when you have fear, fear is an existential threat, right? And joy is an existential connection. And then our society believes you should just hyper focus on marriage, on joy, and parenting. But that doesn't help a person to mature. What helps a person to mature is processing fear in a co-regulated way. Okay? And so when fear is activated, it's an existential threat, and your system, according to Wilder, and remember, he doesn't, he's thinking of the 5 layers as a dynamic of the brain, which he sees is a memory system.
Right. Yeah. He focused a lot on memory. Right.
Right. So I thought that was a brilliant ontology on his part. He sees the who of the human as collection and experiences of the past that's fully present in the now. And so his 5 levels that corresponds to different aspects of the brain isn't technically the 4 structural levels of the brain that you get in other people like Shore and others, but they're not inconsistent.
Right. Yeah.
Okay, and so fear will send signals to the second level, which is which processes processes. Do you want the name of the?
Oh, the guard check is at the amygdala, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let me put that on pause a second. I got it. Well, your brain with implicit memory is gathering in all kinds of experiences. But explicit memory is an organization of the implicit memory. And so, and so your system gathers, and PTSD blocks out explicit processing.
Right.
And so
It stays
the
implicit.
person has a disorientation and disengagement about the event, the pain, and how that connects to them. Which means they can't overcome it. They end up going back into implicit, and yeah, there's chemistries that's blocked and other chemistries that are activated through the parasympathetic and sympathetic system, right? Okay, so thalamus, the central receiving, is processing fear and joy. And when joy's there, it's this wonderful sense of connection. But in my opinion, it gives a nice moment, high or joy or happiness, genuinely.
Mm-hmm.
But it doesn't seem to consolidate in terms of solid, secure identity. Because in order to have solid, secure identity, you need both sense of safety and security. So Jesus, the gentlest doves wise as serpents, Matthew 10, and Jesus communicates that, engages with us as a safe haven and secure base, attachment figure. We experience compassion, and we see that all the time. And there's the dove part, but then we see safe haven, the strength.
Would you agree then with the statement that safe haven is experienced through the organization of explicit memory?
That's a great question, and which for me begs the question: if we take the 5 levels, the memory dynamics of the brain as Wilder, and then try to correlate that with attachment functions of the 4 presence, I would have to work that through. I didn't hear Wilder, you guys may have. Wilder alludes to attachment theory all the time.
All the time, yeah.
But I didn't hear him correlate the 5 levels and attachment, infant attachment style and adult attachment style per se. He may have. He's suggesting it in his material, but I didn't see.
The only correlation he makes is that the thalamus is central receiving, but it's also the attachment center.
Okay.
He calls that the attachment center.
Okay, thanks for
Yeah.
that. Okay.
Yeah, I guess what's missing to me, or what I think maybe is the secret sauce, is you have this sort of implicit and explicit memory, and if that system down there is attuning to fear and joy, then the record of whether we've experienced attunement would be explicit memory.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, so if fear is activated and then it's sent to the next level, which is amygdala central receiving, right? And the central receiving then is going to process. Excuse me. I got.
The central receiving is a little.
Amygdala is
It's
the
a guard
shaft.
shaft. Yeah.
So I think of the amygdala as like in a huge estate. You have an iron gate and
Right.
you have a guard station.
Yep.
And the person comes out and says, "Let me see your ID," so forth. Either let you go in or blocks.
Yes.
Right. And so the amygdala, the guard shack, processes either a sympathetic or parasympathetic. And sympathetic, is fight or flight, and note the activeness of that. And there would be corresponding brain chemistry accordingly.
Right.
And the parasympathetic is more the freeze and withdrawn, and some psychologists call it fawn, F-A-W-N.
Vaughn.
And that I
Oh,
have
fawn. Gotcha.
fawn,
Yeah.
and that's I haven't quite figured that out. What are they talking about? But I see some will say that.
Right.
Now, I don't know technically is that what the parasympathetic system is doing. We know it's freezing and withdrawing.
Yes.
Okay. Fawning, I'm not sure exactly what that is. Since I don't know, it's a guess on my part, but that sounds more like a mood orientation to me. Now, I may be right, I may not be right, but anyway.
There's an article called "Why Did I Cook My Rapist Breakfast?"
Okay.
And the point of the article is, and I think this was earlier on when they were starting to identify fight, flight, freeze, and then they added fawn. And that was, you know, there's all these women reporting, you know, that they would have basically someone come in, kidnap, rape them. Why don't they fight? Why don't they push them out? You know, why do they get up and make them breakfast and send them on their way and then change the locks afterwards? And that is, I think, what Fawn is trying to explain.
Okay. That,
It's an acquiescence almost.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
okay. Serving the abuser.
Serving the abuser to
Prevent
to
the
prevent-
abuse.
Yeah.
to protect their own
Okay.
safety.
Okay. And if because in couples therapy you see that, you wonder, why is she staying in this relationship for years? And she's the good person per se, and he's abusive bad person. Why doesn't she just
Right.
either shoot him or exit?
Put eye drops in his coffee.
Right. Okay, so but remember, sympathetic and parasympathetic, we can't think of those as negative things,
Right. Yeah. Right.
but they're ways to hold
Yeah. It's
the
reality.
fear, right?
Yeah.
So it's ways to hold.
That is so good. Thank you for connecting that dot, David. In
Yeah.
light of what we've been through this last week or two, that is perfect.
Yeah. And then of course the holding is gonna leak.
Right.
It's incomplete.
Right.
Because explicit memory isn't allowed, because explicit memory allows you to hold and process.
Yes.
Otherwise, you're just in experience of it.
It's an experience of it.
You're just in the merry-go-round of the experience. Versus explicit memory, explicit memory system, you can hop off the merry-go-round and see what the merry-go-round's doing.
Like a grounding effect.
The grounding, which grounds you, and then identity.
Yeah, it has
So then,
Go ahead.
so if object relations people talk about an internalized sense of the other, that would somehow be contained in explicit memory.
Yes, because explicit memory is not, it's not just who you think you are, but you in relationship to the other. So attachment theory is about me and the other. It's not about me. And so unless you make that two-person psychology paradigm shift, you can always skew it to static entities and static properties versus keep the dynamic relationality going. So, okay, so obviously we have the central receiving thalamus, signal sent to the guard shaft, amygdala, and then the signals sent to the hippocampus, the mid-region of the brain, and Wilder calls that the library. And the way I think about the library is that The library is a collection of books. Okay? And so each experience, each episode in life is a library, which the implicit librarian has collected, but it's not organized.
And this is correlated to this anterior gyrus, cingulate gyrus, I believe.
Yes, and that's the head librarian.
Yeah.
Okay, and so this massive, and then for the sake of organization, the brain begins to organize it. Like you go to the Salem Library, and it's organized according to different shelves and different topics, right? And so you get organizations. And each of those organizations are going to be sending signals to its sense of who you are. Okay, so the example I use is if you go to the Salem Library and ask if you have to write a paper on the Eiffel Tower, you go to the librarian. You have any books on Eiffel Tower? She says, yeah. Probably two places. Look under geography and go to Europe, France, Paris. Should be something there. Or go to science on the second floor and go to engineering, architecture, and towers. And you go there, you can't find any books on Eiffel Tower. So you go back, and this is my theory. My theory is that there's a basement to the library that has unstacked books, not shelved books.
Not organized.
Not organized. And that's the dynamic and invalidated, unconscious, and pre-reflective.
Okay.
So by extension, could you also then maybe go to like sociology and then history of world fairs and then, oh, there's Eiffel Tower.
You can
Meaning
try, yeah.
there's
Multiple paths.
multiplicity of paths.
Yeah. But let's say for the sake of example, the books about the Eiffel Tower have not been put on the shelves yet.
Right.
They're just in stack.
They're stacked.
And yeah, they're not on the
And
shelves.
so then you have to go to the head librarian. And remember, all this is fear, which ontologically threatens your existence. Joy enhances your existence.
Fear threatens your existence ontologically.
Yeah, and God's not giving you a spirit of fear, but it's a spirit of fear. Doesn't mean He's not designed fear processing
into the structure of it.
Right.
Yeah.
Which is a gift.
It's a gift. Yeah.
Being able to pick up fear and process fear neurologically is a gift.
It's a gift, right?
But God's not giving you a spirit of fear.
Right.
And that's what the enemy uses primarily through lying.
Okay. Good.
He lies, and the fruit of lying is fear is activated. Now you have two problems. Something external, lying, that activates the fear circuitry, and something is consolidated internally.
Right.
Okay? So spirit of fear is both internal and external that has come together. And that's why when you pray for people in processing fearful things, you have to actually encourage them to let go of the fear. And if you watch very carefully, they're reluctant to do that. Because if they let go of the fear, they will feel that they're ontologically nothing. The non-being is worse than fearful being.
Right. No, this is a dynamic that I've processed with clients where, and the one we just talked about across the street, where that anxiety or fear is so wired in. What would I do without it? Right. Of course, this is dumb. It destroys me. It keeps my day from happening. But if I don't have fear, who am I? Right?
And the question of non-being is worse.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
Than being a fearful being.
Right.
Because fearful being still has subjective content.
Yeah.
Nothingness is the most terrifying thing.
Yes, and that's the mistake that's made intuitively with us, is that we think that's the choice. The frame up is incorrect.
Yeah.
But you can't process the frame up, which is a strong left brain concept when someone's on the merry-go-round. You can't look at them and say, hey, get off the merry-go-round. The way you're framing up existence isn't real.
And my spiritual mentor brought that home to me when she was working with a very profound fear in my heart. And she says, you're going to have to give up that fear
of Mexicans
if you want God to heal that fear.
Yes.
And inwardly, it was scary to consider giving up the fear. Because as much as fear was painful,
it's something.
It was something.
Yeah.
Instead of that somethingness, ontologically gives you some sense of solidity, even false solidity, right?
Yeah.
And so then I had a picture in that dynamic of me having to jump across a ditch and to jump over the fear to land on God's side. And so I made a choice, but strangely I got stuck in midair.
Oh.
And that's when I struggled with the terror, the fear.
Yeah. And the fear of not having the fear.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And she said, choose to land.
Choose to land.
Choose to land. And I chose to land.
Oh, good.
And then the fear broke up.
That's amazing. The non-being. And this is where I think our Buddhist friends have only gone like halfway to first base. Because they're right on the letting go element, right? Because I work with clients who kind of shift in that New Age Buddhist direction. But again, the ontology is wrong because it's not about non-being. It's not about not having desires. It's not about non-existence or non-entity. Right. It's saying I can have desires. And I can give up the fear. And I can jump over and land in Christ's arms. There's existence with a capital E.
Precisely. And the Buddhists end up being atheistic.
Yeah.
There's no God. It's just enlightenment. But ontologically, that's a nothing.
It's a nothing, right? It's a nothing.
Which they value.
Right. They haven't
They
landed.
call it enlightenment.
They call enlightenment versus John 1. In the beginning was
the Word.
The Logos, right? The Word. It wasn't in the beginning was nothing. And there was nothing. And so nothing created nothing. No. And then John goes on to say, and we have beheld him. We have touched him. And he is before all things. And he holds all things together. Our ontology is grounded in his existence. And that's reality.
And Buddhism slides into one person's psychology.
100%.
But they amend that by, with enlightenment, you should become a compassionate person helping others. Which is a good move.
It's a good move,
You can do that without the enlightenment.
Totally, But that's where they go, But we seem to be wired deeply for religiosity. And so people who have accepted the reductionist move away from Western Christianity have shifted towards Buddhism.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. I 20 years ago, I knew Buddhism would be the de facto postmodern
Same,
spirituality choice.
Yeah, it was about 25 years ago. I was exploring Buddhism, right in that same time frame. I was like,
Yeah. But attachment told me salvation is relationship. It's not enlightenment.
Right. Well said.
And so I was able to differentiate.
Well, yeah, go ahead.
May I?
Yeah.
I wanted to bring it back and ask a very practical question.
Yeah.
So if we think about, like, I always
we're not great at practical questions, but let's try.
Thank you, Phil.
Yeah.
I always use the metaphor of encountering a mountain lion for, you know, accessing, experiencing the sympathetic, right? Because it's fight or flight, and if fight or flight is working correctly, you're actually running down the trail, wondering why you're running, and having to put it together in hindsight.
Oh, gotcha.
Because if you stopped and cognitively considered
why you're running,
is the mountain lion look hungry? Well, then it's going to be too late.
Yeah, right. Yeah. If you stop and go, huh?
Right.
Yeah.
But there seems to be a modern, well, I don't know if it's modern, but I can only experience modern.
Right.
Because I encountered the mountain lion, now I have to hold that mountain lion experience in my left brain, and I have to keep focusing on, is this a place a mountain lion would be? You know what I'm saying? And so there's like a left brain rumination where I keep calling up this terrifying traumatic experience in order to protect myself from a future one.
Yeah.
But I'm not actually protecting, I'm actually creating psychological damage. And I'm creating dysfunctional cycles in my relationship because we're creating all these epicycles to sort of avoid the things that trigger the trauma, while at the same time I'm constantly rehearsing it.
Rehearsing the trauma.
So that I don't, this goes back to what you said about being a non-entity. But I think there's a practical rehearsal that I agree with the whole non-entity thing, but practically it's like the rehearsal is somehow a protective measure.
The non-entity rehearsal. Or you mean the
rehearsal of the mountain lion.
The mountain lion is practical.
Attack. Initially, it's practical because initially it's a way to protect, but then it becomes a, maladaptive. Initially it's adaptive, but then it becomes maladaptive because now it's causing more harm.
And because we're ruminating in it.
Because we're ruminating.
Left brain ruminating.
Left brain ruminating, which is very isolated.
Yeah.
I'm alone when I'm in my left brain ruminating. But I feel really good because I can think really well.
Right.
That's interesting. Explore.
And I like what you're saying, except as I hear it, there's a nuanced part that I would have to, with you, figure out if we can integrate the nuanced part. That part that for me that needs to be integrated is this. Fear, brain processing fear is not a negative.
Oh, yeah, I got you.
The fear is a negative, so a fear of a lion is a gift. But being paralyzed by that fear experientially, and so if the fear of the lion becomes an I-it out of survival, that's okay. But if it becomes paralyzing, where I can't go, I refuse to walk into the jungle, okay? But if it's integrated, then the fear of the lion becomes an I-thou. The sense of me is not shipwrecked in I-it, because Uber says the I of thy it is different than the I of thy thou.
And so you're saying internally you're having an I-thou interaction with the fear.
Yes.
Kind of, that's the sense of owning it.
Yes.
Coming into relationship
Yes.
with it, so it doesn't have power over
Yes.
you, which would prevent the ruminating.
Right, and perfect love casts out fear, which doesn't mean the fear is eliminated. Though I walk through the valley of shadow that I fear no evil, because you are with me. And God, the way God's perfect love, He is perfect love, casts out fear, is He holds me in the fear, comes to me in the valley of shadow death, and takes my hand, but He doesn't pull me out of the valley. He walks with me through the valley, which breaks the power of the valley and reorganizes my life. That doesn't mean the capacity to fear has been eliminated. And that's where I think Buddhist illumination is kind of a pseudo illumination. The true illumination is I'm not alone. You are with me.
Excellent. Yeah.
Okay, so, all right, so the hippocampus, the library, it's organized books. So using my Eiffel Tower example, you look in science, you look in geography, can't find it, so you go back to the librarian and say, I can't find it. And then she turns to the head librarian, and the head librarian we know is an anterior cingulate. Okay, and so the signals are sent to the head librarian. Okay, and the head librarian, using my example, says, wait a minute, and looks into this huge black book, and she thumbs through, and she says, yeah, we have 3 books on Eiffel Tower. They are in the basement. They haven't been put on shelf.
There we go.
Okay?
There we go.
Okay, now we have organization. Because your brain has to gather massive information and organize it through narrative, through emotionalities, through symbols, and all kinds of things. Okay?
So the signal that's going to the anterior cingulate is something that happens through through a relationship, right? And we're saying through the counseling relationship, we're creating a context for that signal to be created.
Hang tight, because you're saying the signals, in this case, it's a fear signal going up from basically the brainstem.
Yeah, it's going this way.
It's not quite into awareness yet.
Head librarian, it's not fully processed.
But you're saying, I think what you're kind of down the supply chain, you're saying that taking that energy of this fear in a counseling scenario would allow us access into the basement.
Yeah,
potentially.
Yeah.
But I don't think we've reached that place just yet.
Okay.
In the model.
Because I'm asking the question, and in this case, we have a client who we've done the cycle with the first 3 levels over and over and over. That's why they're here.
Yeah.
This anterior cingulate has not been functioning for them.
Well, correct. And in trauma, the first 2 levels are collapsed.
Yeah.
Right? They're not even working.
Yeah.
But in the dyadic relationship with you, they start to come online. Okay.
Yeah. And so the head librarian says the books are here. Now you have a chance to go, and the ideal thing is if the head librarian goes with you, says, let's go down to the basement together. I'll show you where it is.
Yeah, and that normally to me only happens with God giving you wisdom or a counselor incarnating that presence, right?
Right. There's from a family therapy perspective, we talk about joining the system.
Yeah.
So at some point, our joining is going to begin to unwind and rewind what's happening here.
Yeah.
Love that. Yeah.
And then finally, and remember, this is something we have to remember, is that consciousness and unconsciousness is here.
It's somewhere up there. Yeah.
So if we an iceberg,
Yeah.
this is only 5%, and this is 95%.
Wow.
And the center of the iceberg part is identity, is the heart, which has a plus side and a minus side. The plus side is God's designed us with relational needs, longings, and desires. And the minus side is all the fear manifestations, fear of rejection, abandonment, betrayal, disqualification. Okay? All right, so, and then finally, it's brought into conscious awareness, and it's being transformed. And then remember,
What do you mean by being transformed?
once the brain is able to structurally identify what the problems, once the Eiffel Tower book is identified, now we have a chance to consciously process
Okay,
it.
now there's a chance.
There's a chance.
If we, and this was what Van der Kolk
Yeah.
says is top down, right?
Yeah.
So now I have a chance to transform it through
Yeah.
processing it
Right. But
or metabolizing it.
right, remember, top down is 140
Yep.
miles per hour.
Yep.
And bottom up is 280.
Yeah, 280.
Does that line out to the what's his name is using 6 times per second and 5 times per second?
Yeah.
6 times per second, he says, is it the amygdala or a part of the brain is I'm statusing my relationship with you guys at 6 times a second.
hemisphere.
Yeah.
I'm processing 6 things.
6 times a second.
Bang,
Boom,
bang,
boom.
bang.
And then
You can't count it.
Yeah.
right, and then he says the intellectual, I think, is operating at roughly 5 times a second.
Right, but don't forget, 6 times a second bombardment, 5 times receiving and processing.
Oh, that's what it is. I need to go back and review
So
that.
it's not just straight 6
Right.
and 5.
Right. It's back and forth.
There is receiving and processing.
Yeah. Yeah, he says it's 40
It's
millis.
like a pitcher and a catcher. The pitcher
Yeah.
can throw the ball to the catcher,
Yeah.
and the catcher has to throw the ball back
Yeah. Right. But slower.
slower.
Yeah.
But if the pitcher has 6 balls, jing, 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 the fact you have to catch it, and the catcher becomes the second pitcher, P2,
Right. At half the speed.
half the speed.
Yeah. And slower. Yeah.
Okay.
Excellent. Yeah. Thanks for saying about the 5 times a second. I forgot about that.
Okay, so, but remember that when you are day 1, the baby has 30% of the brain missing.
Yeah. Hmm.
Okay, anterior, right. It's prefrontal cortex.
Yeah.
Okay, and in 2 years of attachment with mom, it develops. Okay? And then we have internal, infant attachment style that becomes adult attachment style.
Yeah, like 86% or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so, and this part has three people, three faces, not one face.
Right.
So you can think of the complex neural circuitry of those three faces as three mirrors. Looking at each other.
Stinking Freud, man.
Yeah. And so who you
Kinda
are
right.
is not single entity. You are a composite of three. And the first one is the me mirror. And me is looking at the mirror, you see you, but you're not seeing you. You're seeing what your parents constructed. And that's why people have disjointed and disorganized and unregulated sense of who they are. There are things missing, and that's why I told you guys the story of my parents who never picked up my intellectual ability.
Right. Yeah.
So, which translates into relationality emotion. So I don't have internal confidence. When I do intellectual work, I'm always struggling. Did I get this right? Is that really true? What is it? And when people say, that was wonderful, well, that's brilliant, I go, thank you, but it doesn't hit home. And it took me years to figure out that I don't need to experience the confidence to do the work.
Okay.
I need to just serve.
Right. That's good. Good point.
So if you're a cook, and let's say you're gifted as a master chef, but you never have an internal sense you're a good cook, that doesn't mean you can't cook.
It doesn't mean you can't serve.
It doesn't mean you can't serve.
Right.
Okay? And that's a false notion. And we'll get woke movement out of that.
What's the false notion?
That you have to experience something internally in order for you to be you. I don't feel like a boy, though I have a female body. So you have to treat me as what I determine.
Good.
Right?
Yeah.
And notice woke people become very rigid and defensive. If the woke people became kind, compassionate, serving, I would say they're onto something. But you consistently get the opposite. Sadly. Okay? So the me mirror, everyone has a distortion. If clinically, if I was hazarding to guess, I would say everyone, it's clinical anecdotal postulation. I would say 20% of my clients have a distorted view of themselves.
Just 20?
20. Let me rephrase that. Each client has about 20% distortion.
Oh, gotcha. Gotcha, yes. That
Yeah.
makes sense.
Yeah,
Yeah.
thanks for that clarification. The second mirror is you're not seeing you, but you're seeing mom and dad. And from mom, you get mom interacts with you and has to co-regulate joy
Yeah.
by smiling and happy and fear. And mom has to, in the second year, after 9 months plus, has to allow fear,
A lot of pain, yeah.
pain and then come and co-regulate it.
Yeah.
Okay. So mom, you get emotional co-regulation. And dad, you get identity.
Yep.
So, what appeared to me is that we are discussing this as if it was just like one set of signals going up and down, but in reality, there's hundreds of thousands going up and down simultaneously.
Right.
Some
Right.
with more success, some with less success.
Right.
Some are like, oh, mom mirror attuned to me, no problem. Others are like, what?
Right. Right. But all those stimulus response patterns and so forth are organized. And that's why I thought the memory dynamic that Wilder expressed was brilliant. Because he's talking about how is it that we are we, or I am I,
Right.
which is a collection of episodes, experiences, and so forth. My system's gathering, making sense of, which is very complex with all kinds of sidebars and firing and so forth. But at the same time, there's coherence.
Yeah, and he talks about the right brain asking the question, who am I? Who are my people?
Yeah.
How do my people
Right,
handle
thank you.
this?
Yeah. Yes. How do my people, how do we deal with this?
Right. And what's the third mirror?
Third mirror is a point. So you got and third mirror is really strange because it's a point inside of you that is connected to a point outside of you. And so since I'm theologically trained, I said that's transcendence, a point that transcends. Because this now is an open system, this is a closed system, and this is eminence. And when you have eminence and transcendence, you have incarnation. So I call it the image of God mirror, IOG mirror.
Eminence with an E?
The I.
I.
Imminence?
Imminent, yeah.
Eminent, present, now, here. And all three has to be facing each other, and that's who you are, your identity.
In the attributes of God scenario, you have like the 3 O's, right? He's omnipotent, omniscient, omnipresent. Immanence is but he's here.
Yeah.
And so it's the immanence mirror. He's here, we're here.
So Jesus is fully human. He's in our system, which is a closed system, but he is son of man, but he's also son of God, and he transcends the humanness.
This is the transcendence that haunts,
Yeah.
right? You've referred to that in the past.
And so no one is biologically wired to be an atheist.
Yeah, well said, yeah.
Atheism is a philosophical rejection of truth and biology. Okay, so trauma healing, in my understanding, trauma healing, we just go scuba diving. In my understanding, it's at least 3 times. But it could be anywhere from 3 to 30 times.
Yep. Because the healing of the system begins with level 1, not level 5.
Yeah.
Right. Level 4, you start with attachment and build up.
Yeah.
Yeah. I used the analogy today of a client, like if this is a 5-story building, and the top 2 floors were wiped out by a hurricane, right? So you don't start reconstructing the highest floor, right? You start building up. And it's messy as your
Very
systems come
messy.
online, because you've got 2x4s up, you've got plywood up, the plumbing's not in place.
Yep.
But slowly, the healing of trauma, starting with attachment, and your top 2 floors come online again.
Yep.
This trauma kind of collapses function some level.
All right. And since you videotaped this, maybe at the Friday seminar, we should just show the videotape
Yeah, totally. We could do that.
to begin with.
We have 51 minutes.
Yeah.
8.
Yeah, trauma psychotherapy isn't so much managing and processing the trauma, but creating a new identity by incorporating dynamic, unvalidated, and pre-reflective material
In the context of a dyadic relationship.
in the context of a dyadic relationship. Oh, let's go to Buber again. The I of the I thou is different than the I of the I it.
Yeah.
And the I of the I thou it consolidates the three meaning.
Yeah.
It comes together.
Yeah. I think healing is fundamentally I thou
Yeah.
foundation based.
Yeah. And notice all the fruit of the Holy Spirit are I thou focus. Gentleness, kindness, patience, love, peace, joy. Because when you experience those things and you share those things, I thou is possible. Versus management, exploration, administration, regulation, all the, you can even tell by the sound of the words.
Again, yeah. But I would say, David, all those other things that we talk about, whether it's scuba diving or whether it's cybernetic black box,
Yeah.
or whether it's function, or whether it's organizing, it's the context of the I thou
Yeah.
that drives the direction where that therapy goes, right?
Well said.
It's in the
Yeah.
I thou-ness that you pick up
Right,
naturally and organically
right,
what's
Right.
happening here, what's developing here, right?
right.
And that's why in some I thou cases we can put up a spreadsheet and help them plan their day.
Yeah,
In some I thou cases we're just sitting in the pain,
right.
but it's the I thou-ness that matters.
Yeah, all real living is meeting,
Yeah.
and meeting is I thou. I and thou in relationship. Yet Buber, remember, says it's the melancholy of our faith that every I thou turns into an I it,
My favorite quotes, bro.
right? Which says we're still on earth, in heaven and earth. I thou, earth, thou, heaven, hasn't fully come. But they're constantly meeting
Right.
and impacting.
And James says that the return is always at hand.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah,
It's always at hand.
yeah. So, anyway, fun stuff.